am Benjamin. Today's video is about dangling participles and how to fix them, improving your English grammar. If you are new to my channel, kindly subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Click also on the bell icon so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. Let's dive into the lesson right away. First, the highlights. What is a participle? What is the difference between a participle and a verb? What is a participial phrase? What is a dangling participle? And then we shall look at examples of dangling participles and how to fix them. Let's take this one by one. What is a participle? A participle is a form of a verb that is used to indicate a past or ongoing action and that can be used like an adjective. For example, the phrase the rising sun, in that phrase, rising is a participle. All right? You find that rising is a participle. When you look at the rising sun, then the word rising is modifying the sun, is the present participle used as an adjective or a modifier. All right? A participle can be used as an adjective, for example, writing materials. When you look at the word writing materials, writing is a present participle and is functioning as an adjective, telling us more about materials. What type of materials are we talking about? Writing materials. You have building materials and so on and so forth. Then to create verb tense, for example, she is writing a book. You can see that the present participle here is combined with the auxiliary verb is to form a verb phrase, is writing. She is writing a book. Or to create the passive voice. For example, the book was written by Amanda, was written. You see, so written is the past participle of write, and here it is used to create the passive voice. So these are the uses of the participles. And there are two major types of participles. You have the present participle ending in ing and the past participle usually ending in ed, d, t, en as you have in written, or n. All right, n of course as you have in written. You have given. Then when you talk of t, you have length. You talk of d or ed, you have a number of others. Like when you have bagged, then you have d there. If you have something like begged, ed will be there. So these are, basically what we need to know about a participle. So let's move on. What is the difference between a participle and a verb? Learning the differences between verbs and participles helps you to write more clearly and effectively. Now, what's the difference? Verbs indicate action to a reader, but participles look like verbs, yet they are adjectives, as we earlier saw. They merely describe other words in a sentence. Participles usually end in ing or ed. We have seen them. Now, example of a verb, you can see the light was shining around us. Shining is a participle, and then when we use it as a verb, we combine it with the past form of this auxiliary verb, to be. The light was shining around us. Then, if we use the same shining as a participle, we can say we saw the shining light all around us. So shining here is used as an adjective to describe the light. All right. Then we can look at the past participle. The car was parked near the wall. Of course, this is a typo here. It's not wall, but wall, near the wall. Okay, so the car was parked near the wall. Okay, and so this is we have used it to create the passive voice. The car was parked near the wall. Or we can say the driver parked the car near the wall. Okay, then when used as a participle, we can say the truck was hit. The truck hit the parked car. All right, the truck hit the parked car. So you can see parked car. Parked is telling us about car. It's describing the car. It's telling us that the car is not a moving one, but it's not a speeding car. It's a parked car. All right. So let's move on. What is a participial phrase? We need to understand the participial phrase because that is exactly what will help us to examine more critically the phenomenon called dangling participles. The dangling participle is always contained within a participial phrase. All right, so let's look at the participial phrase. A participial phrase is a group of words containing a participle and other words which function as its objects or complements. For example, kneeling beside his bed, Mark began to pray. The participial phrase here is kneeling beside his bed. And then the participle is kneeling beside his bed, are the words that form the object or complements of this participle kneeling. So, kneeling beside his bed, Mark began to pray. A second example, crossing the bridge, they heaved a sigh of relief. So, the participial phrase here is crossing the bridge. Another example, realizing the implications of their action, Adam and Eve hid themselves from the Lord. So the participial phrase here is realizing the implications of their action. All right? So let's move on. What is a dangling participle? Now, a dangling participle occurs when a participial phrase is not followed by the noun it is supposed to modify. Thus, the participle is unintentionally modifying the wrong noun in a sentence. In some cases, there is no noun at all. All right? That means the noun that the participle is supposed to modify is completely missing. In some cases, the noun may be there, but it's far away from the participle that is supposed to modify it. Now, let's look at examples here. All right. Okay, let's look at examples here. Trying to overtake a trailer, the car ran into a pothole and somersaulted. Okay, so there is an omission here. And is missing. to make the sentence complete. Okay? And then the participial phrase here is trying to overtake the trailer. The car ran into a pothole and somersaulted. The question here is, you know, who was trying to overtake a trailer? Was it, the car couldn't be driving itself. So, of course, something is omitted here. This trying to overtake a trailer is supposed to, refer to the driver who was actually driving the car. But here, that particular noun phrase, the driver, or a noun, the person's name, is missing here completely. And then there is a confusion as to what this actually means. Trying to overtake a trailer, the car ran into a pothole and somersaulted. Now, of course, this is a dangling participle. It's hanging because it's not modifying. It doesn't, it's not modifying anything. All right. The same thing we have here. Driving recklessly, the car was damaged beyond repair and 2 persons killed. You see, again, the driver is supposed to be the person that driving recklessly is modifying here, but the driver again is missing here, and the car is, it appears that the car is the one driving recklessly. So that is the kind of confusion that the dangling participle creates. It creates some ambiguity that can only be resolved if the very object, the very thing, person or thing being modified is inserted in the right position. So here in the first one, we can say trying to overtake a trailer, the driver drove the car into a pothole and it somersaulted. You can see. Here we can insert the driver again. Driving recklessly, the driver damaged the car beyond repair and 2 persons were killed in the process, if you like. Then let's look at the other example. Arriving home after being declared missing for 3 days, the whole family began to jubilate. Of course, this is another big confusion here, because it could not be the whole family that had really gone missing for 3 days. Arriving home after being declared missing for 3 days, the whole family began to jubilate. So it must be one member of the family that went missing for 3 days, and when he or she returned, then the whole family began to jubilate. So we have to insert this missing person. Arriving home after being declared missing for 3 days, Junior walked into the sitting room and the whole family began to jubilate. So you can see something has to be inserted here that this participial phrase directly modifies. So we have seen that the participial phrase ought to modify a definite person or thing that it describes or refers to, and when such a person or thing is missing, then of course it becomes a dangling participle. It might interest you to know that there are other modifiers that can dangle in the way that the participle dangles here. All right. So, but that is a video for another day. Other modifiers that can be dangling in a sentence and then create the kind of grammatical error that we have seen with these examples. So let's move on and look at other examples. All right, we are now looking at what a dangling participle is. So let's look at other uh, perspectives as to what the dangling modifier is. So here we see that a dangling modifier is a sentence in which it is unclear what is being described or modified. Yes, that's another perspective. And then we have example, hoping to excuse my lateness, the note was written and given to the teacher. Again, here you see the correction. Hoping to excuse my lateness, I wrote a note to the teacher. You see, this was missing because the question is who was hoping to excuse my lateness? Of course, it was I, hoping to excuse my lateness. I wrote a note to the teacher. But here, the confusion is, was the note hoping to excuse his lateness? Of course, that couldn't happen because the note lacks the human quality to hope, all right? Or to hope or to excuse, So those qualities cannot really be present in that object, the note. So let's look at another perspective. So what's a dangling participle? A dangling participle does not describe the subject of the sentence. For example, dangling. Thrown into the air, the dog chased after the stick. You see? Thrown into the air, the dog chased after the stick. Now, the correct version, thrown into the air, the stick flew away from the dog. Because, what was thrown into the air was the stick, certainly not the dog, So, thrown into the air, the stick, because the stick was what was exactly thrown. But in the first sentence, the impression created is that it was the dog that was thrown into the air. All right, so there is really a very serious omission that results in, the wrong meaning, creating a wrong impression of the meaning, the exact meaning of the sentence. All right, so that's exactly what it is. The point here is that the subject is missing. The actual subject is missing here. All right. So let's look at other examples. Dangling participle examples. 1. After rotting in the cellar for weeks, my brother brought up some oranges. You see, again, the question here is who was rotting in the cellar? Was it my brother that was actually rotting, or was it the oranges? You see, so that is the confusion here. So now to correct this, we have to really bring in the right subject here. After rotting in the cellar for weeks, the oranges were brought up by my brother. All right. So the oranges have to be inserted close to the participial phrase so that the meaning will be clear. Then the second example, eating pie in the sun, a rainbow was seen. You see, was it the rainbow that was eating pie in the rain or someone else? You see, since when do rainbows eat pie? I thought they only ate, you see, so that's the confusion, that's really on a very lighter note. So now it could be I, eating pie in the sun, I saw a rainbow, so you have to put, to bring the subject that the participial phrase modifies close to it to tally with what we call the rule of proximity. You know, when you talk of grammatical concord, of course, you have to apply the rule of proximity, especially in the case of the dangling participle. The law or the rule of proximity has been violated here because it is either the subject is completely omitted or the subject is far removed from the participle that modifies it. Okay, so let's move on. Now, yet another example, dangling modifier. Of course, a participle is a modifier, so it's also right to use the word modifier while referring to the participle. There are other modifiers, as I earlier hinted, but we are going to look at them in a separate lesson. A modifier dangles when there is nothing for it to describe. All right? For example, laughing loudly, the movie was over. The question, who was laughing loudly? So that person being modified by laughing loudly is missing here, and that is what leaves the participle dangling here. You know, it is just hanging without leaning on anything in particular. Then the answer, the movie was laughing loudly. So that's on a lighter note. All right. The movie could not have laughed, you know, because the movie cannot be the one who is laughing loudly. This is a dangling modifier. So you can see, all right. So well, we can correct this by inserting the actual subject. We can say laughing loudly, you know, I discovered that the movie was over. Laughing loudly, they realized the movie was over, you know, or something like that. Now, let's look at examples of dangling participles and how to fix them. Now, in grammar, a dangling participle is a modifier that doesn't seem to modify anything. We have seen this clearly. This happens when the word being modified is omitted from the sentence or is not located near the modifier. For example, going down memory lane, it had been real hell living with the man. See, so here you discover that the real subject is missing. Going down memory lane. So the question is, who was going down memory lane? That person is missing in this sentence. So to fix this, we have to insert the missing noun or pronoun near the participle. We can say, going down memory lane, Rose agreed it had been real hell living with the man, because it was Rose who was going down memory lane. All right? So that is exactly how to fix a dangling modifier. Let's look at other examples. Now, fix the dangling participles. How do we do this? Now, let's look at this. Racing to the wall, the fly ball was caught by the fleet-footed outfielder. This, of course, is a dangling participle, dangling to the wall. All right. Then we can reward it. We can reconstruct it to fix it. Dancing to the wall, the fleet-footed outfielder caught the fly ball. You see, because the question here is, who was actually, okay, racing, not dancing, please. Let's really correct this. It's racing, not dancing, please. All right. Now, racing to the wall, The fly ball was caught by the fleet-footed outfielder. This is wrong because racing to the wall is left a dangling participle here because the fly ball could not have been racing to the wall. Now, to correct it, we have to bring the right subject closer to the participle. And to do this, we have racing to the wall. The fleet-footed outfielder caught the fly ball. All right, so that is exactly how to fix it. Next, we have dangling participles and what the kind of wrong meaning they can convey and how to really fix them. Now let's look at this one. Carrying a flashlight, the part was more visible. The question is, who was carrying a flashlight? Could the part have been carrying a flashlight? That gives us a wrong meaning that the part was carrying a flashlight, which actually gives us a wrong meaning. Now, if we have to fix it, what we have is carrying a flashlight, I could see the part. All right? I could see the part. Okay, let's move on to other examples. Now, let's look at, participial phrase that does not modify anything. That is a dangling participle. And the example we have cheering for the home team. The game was on TV. Now, who was cheering for the home team? You see, that's exactly the problem. This is a dangling modifier because it does not modify anything. It couldn't have been referring to the game that was on TV because the game on TV could not be cheering for the home team. So that gives us a whole lot of confusion there. Now, to fix it, again, we bring the real subject and place it close to the participial phrase. And to do this, let's look at it. Cheering for the whole team, Gilberto watched the game on TV. Now look at it. Gilberto is actually the subject that this participle ought to modify. Now let's look at another example. Sitting on the back porch, the sun set upon the horizon. Now again, who was sitting on the back porch? The impression we are giving here is that the sun was the one sitting on the porch and at the same time setting upon the horizon. So that is a whole lot of confusion there. To fix this, we have to look for the real subject and place it side by side with the participial phrase that modifies it. And what we have is, sitting on the back porch, we watch the sun set upon the horizon. So we is the actual subject that this participial phrase modifies. Okay? Now let's look at more examples. Now, dangling. Paddling down the river, the canoe overturned. Again, you see that is really the confusion here because we are made to think that the canoe was the one paddling itself down the river when it overturned. To correct it, we again look for the real paddler here, the subject. There are two ways we can do that to reconstruct it. Number one, As we paddled down the river, the canoe overturned. That's one way of reconstructing it. The second way is paddling down the river, we overturned the canoe. All right? All right. So that's exactly the way it has been. That's how it has been in today's video. For this is exactly where we draw the curtain. I want to thank you for being part of today's video. We have been looking at dangling participles and how to fix them. And I hope you have learned a lot of grammatical principles. You have been able to discover what a participle is exactly. You have learned the difference between a participle and a verb. You have discovered something about a participial phrase. You have exactly known what a dangling participle is, and you have seen quite a lot of examples of dangling participles, and you have learned how to fix them. I hope you will use the knowledge you gained from this video to actually improve your English grammar and be able to communicate your ideas with clarity in your subsequent speeches and writing. So if you have enjoyed today's video, kindly like the video and share it with your friends and relations. Don't hesitate to leave your comments, your questions, your suggestions in the comments section. If you have any topic that you have in mind that you would want me to discuss in subsequent videos, do leave the suggestion in the comment section as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not done so, and do click on the bell icon as well so that you will be receiving notifications whenever new videos are uploaded. Once again, I want to thank you for being part of today's episode. See you in the next lesson.